Hi, I'm Dr. Langley. I'm a family doctor. I work in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I see really as many families and kids that I can in my practice. I love to see families and kids. I honestly love seeing people of all ages. That's why I became a family doctor. I couldn't just pick one certain demographic or selection of patients, so that's why I like seeing them all. And there are a lot of visits for keeping your kids healthy that are recommended. And I just wanted to spell it out because I realized not even everyone realizes how often the ideal is for having their kids seen by their doctor. And it's really convenient here in a direct primary care practice because we don't have co-pays. You don't have to see us at all. You're already paying a monthly fee to see us for your family, and so you can come in as often as you want and or as often as you need. So hopefully that helps my patients to come in and be seen for as many visits as they're supposed to. But ideally, you have your baby seen sometime in the week after they're born. Different hospitals, different midwives have different policies of how they work that. Sometimes they see the baby up to 2 weeks of age. Sometimes the handoff is right after you get discharged from the hospital to your pediatrician or to your family doctor. There's quite a few things that they like to do in the hospital to make sure all babies get screened, to make sure they don't have signs of congenital heart disease. Make sure there's nothing wrong with their heart. That's usually done with pulse ox on their hands and feet to make sure that the oxygen seems to be getting to all the different parts of the body like it should. Another thing that's good to check is hearing, just bouncing sound waves basically onto the tympanic membrane and make sure they're bouncing back as one would expect. If your baby is missing a tympanic membrane or something like that, you want to know as soon as possible because that's going to affect how they develop because they'll be missing that area of hearing. So it's a good thing to know. And another thing is the heel prick or the newborn screen, where they collect a couple dots of blood on a piece of paper and they're able to cut that up and analyze it in these really cool machines that check for signs that your baby can't metabolize things like other babies. I mean, it also checks for often things like sickle cell trait, sickle cell disease, as well as usually, a good couple tens, 20s of other rare illnesses, rare diseases, rare disorders that are just really important to identify as soon as possible. So it's a really inexpensive and awesome, I believe it's state-funded method of checking babies for things that could really impact their growth and development, but are also really uncommon, so no one really wants to check for them that often. So cool things that get done during that first week of life, or maybe even in the hospital. Usually you get 2 heel sticks done, one in the hospital and one maybe a week or 2 later. And that's something that we do here at Pine Ridge Family Medicine if it hasn't already been done. So pretty cool. And then ideally, assuming baby is gaining weight well, that's one of the big things we worry about with little ones, is make sure that they start on the track of gaining weight. And once they are, then we feel a lot better. We can see them again at 1 month. Some areas where tuberculosis is really prevalent, they might do a tuberculosis screen at that time. And then at 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, 9 months, at 12 months, sometimes if parents are worried about low iron or anemia, that's an easy blood test to check for, or if there's indications that there might be lead in the house or it's an older community with a lot of lead-based paint. That's something to check babies for because they're getting to be more mobile around 12 months. And believe it or not, like those paint chips that have lead in them, lead actually tastes delicious. Please do not eat lead. It will decrease your IQ possibly. But that's why it's such a problem, because it's not just, oh, these silly kids are eating bits of paint. The paint is crunchy and sweet and quite a satisfying snack apparently. So it makes sense why kids would be attracted to peeling off little bits of the walls and eating them because they're delicious. Not so good for the babies though. And then another well visit at 15 months, 18 months, around 18 months to 2 years, some doctors will do what's called the MCHAT, which is a little extra test for asking parents about some signs of autism or autism spectrum that they can just be aware of and start learning more about to best parent their children. 2 years, 2.5 years. Then after you hit 3 years old, you just have to go once a year. And I usually recommend trying to go around your child's birthday, an easy thing to remember to check off the list, get the cake, plan the party, go to the doctor for your annual well visit. It's a nice thing to tie in. And around 3 years of age is when you can start looking at blood pressure to make sure it's not showing signs of being high. Pretty unusual in kids, but something that you can start checking for. So that's a lot of visits. What are we doing in those visits? Well, we're checking for your child's height and weight, your baby's height and weight, and head circumference as well, to make sure that they're growing the way they should. If they're starting to fall off the growth curve, they're not growing the way they should, that can be a sign of all sorts of things. It just means that we need to start looking deeper into something else going on, whether that's digestively the child isn't taking in the nutrients that they should from their food, or whether they're missing a certain hormone, like a growth hormone, that's impacting how their bones are growing. It just means we need to look a little bit deeper, and usually there are other signs going on as to what that might be, whether it's baby is always having blood in their stool, or the child is always the shortest person in class, and oh, by the way, their cousin has a growth hormone deficiency as well. So usually there's other clues. Another thing that we're doing is vaccinating. There's such a big chart of vaccines to get through. I really like it when I can get through a lot of those vaccines when kids are babies, because they don't remember that quite as well as they do when they're older kids. So I get to have a better relationship with the kids, that they don't just associate me with giving shots. I really like that. But I do love vaccines. I think they can be very important in keeping kids healthy. Sometimes we're also checking kids' vision eyes, vision, make sure they can read the big E and all the shapes on the sign down the hallway. Easy thing to check. Make sure that they're developing properly. My patients will also often get an email ahead of their appointment with an ASQ form. The Ages and Stages questionnaire is a common way of just filling out some questions about, hey, can your child trace this letter, or draw a line in a straight line, or hop on one foot, or stack a bunch of blocks 3 blocks high. Little things that it's a lot easier to be at home and evaluating than just trying to rack your brain, maybe texting your spouse to, hey, have you noticed little Charles, can he hop up and down on one foot while reciting the alphabet backwards? Just kidding, that's not quite how in-depth they are. But they're still easier to do when you can be sitting at home, be like, hey, kid, recite the alphabet backwards while hopping on one foot for me, please. So that's a little questionnaire that changes as your child grows bigger and hopefully develops in different ways, and it checks for fine motor coordination, gross motor coordination, communication, all sorts of different areas of development. After your child hits school age, we don't do that quite so much anymore because we trust that development will be picked up at school based on ages, grades at school, how they're reading, how they are behaving in school will really be the important factors that we look for there. And also my favorite part of, I get to see kids in clinic, which is really fun. I like hanging out with the kids that are my patients and just getting to know them and watch them grow. That's been one of my big desires as a family doctor, is to have families in my life that I get to see their kids grow from itty bitty to all the way to high school and beyond. Haven't quite hit that yet, but I look forward to it. I have a couple very special families that I've been following for a long time, and that means a lot to me. And hopefully that means that, you know, their kids trust me to talk about things with me, especially as they get older, especially as they hit teen years. It's wonderful to have another adult in their life that they've known for a long time and can trust with tricky questions when they're a little bit nervous about talking about them with their parents, for example. So there's reasons why so many different well-child visits, mostly because I find it to be fun. Just kidding. There's a lot of things to follow your kids and make sure they're growing as best as they can, and have relationships not only with the kids but with you parents as well, so that every little worry that comes up that's significant you can mention to your doctor because you're visiting with them so much. Hey, I noticed when little Martha gets tired, her eye turns out a little bit on one side. What does that mean? Is that something I should be worried about? It's keeping me up at night, but maybe if you talk with your doctor about it, it doesn't need to worry you or keep you up at night. Or maybe we can take some practical steps to make sure that it doesn't become a bigger problem. Hopefully that answers your questions. Thanks for watching. Please check out that video as well. It might be of interest to you, and subscribe to our channel there so you can find out when we post more videos. Have a great day.